Imagine trying to capture an entire war, not from the trenches, but from thousands of miles away. Well, that's exactly what we have here. This is an archive of 248 letters, all from one man, Private Tom Baxter. And they tell the incredible story of his entire 5-year journey through the First World War, all from the colonial outposts of Burma and India. We're going to follow his story letter by letter, from the moment he left home to the day he finally returned.
And let's start right here, November 1914. You can just feel the excitement, can't you? This is a 19-year-old kid from a small town in England, seeing the world for the very first time. There's this real sense of adventure in his words. This is the beginning of a journey that was bigger than he could have ever imagined.
So how in the world does an estate clerk end up on a transport ship in the Suez Canal? Well, Tom's journey didn't start with some grand patriotic choice. Nope. It started with a sudden, urgent call that yanked him from his quiet life and threw him headfirst into a global war.
This is it. This is the exact moment everything changed. A single telegram. And you've got to love the spelling. Mobilization. With that one urgent, misspelled word, Tom Baxter's life as a clerk was officially over. He was now a soldier in the 4th Border Regiment.
And just look how fast his world expanded. It's pretty wild. In the span of just a few months, he goes from his little hometown of Brampton to a massive transport ship and lands all the way over in Maymyo, Burma. The sheer scale of that journey back then is it's staggering.
So, now we're with Tom in Burma. And his new reality? It's a world of incredible beauty, but also some really intense challenges. It was a place of constant daily contrasts.
At first, he can tell he's just blown away. His letters basically read like a travel blog. He's completely fascinated by the landscape, describing the Gokteek Gorge like a geologist. He's a tourist, discovering a world that is a million miles away from the quiet hills of home.
But that initial wonder, it doesn't last forever. Just 1 month later, the tone completely shifts. The paradise he wrote about is now soaked in a relentless monsoon, and you can hear the frustration in his writing. The awe has been replaced by a weary, I just want this rain to stop.
So, far from any battlefield, life settles into this really strange rhythm. It was a mix of military drills, this constant worry about getting sick from some tropical disease, and this incredibly deep connection to home. Getting a parcel in the mail, that was everything. Rumors were the main form of entertainment. He even joked that he and his friends were gassing like 2 old women. And underneath it all, you feel this constant ache for the simple things, like just owning a decent suit of civilian clothes again. But here's the thing. Even though he was thousands of miles away, the war was everywhere. It cast this long, dark shadow that reached all the way to his remote outpost in Burma, connecting him to the conflict in very real and often painful ways.
And this really is the central question of Tom's entire experience, right? He wasn't in the trenches on the Western Front, but he was absolutely in the war. So how did that war find him, all the way out there?
Well, it filtered in piece by piece. He'd read the official news reports, sure, but the real war came through in letters from friends who were on the front lines, and, tragically, through the news that some of those friends had been killed. Sometimes the war would even reach out and physically cut his lifeline to home when mail ships were torpedoed and the letters he was so desperate to get were lost at sea.
This quote right here, wow, it just lays bare this incredibly complicated mix of emotions he was dealing with. You've got survivor's guilt, you've got this soldier's itch for action, but also this sober understanding that, hey, he was one of the lucky ones. He knew he was well off, but you can tell that knowledge really bothered him.
Okay, so November 1918. The war is finally over. But for Tom and thousands of other soldiers stationed all over the globe, the fighting was just replaced by a new battle. The long, agonizing, frustrating wait to get home. To get back to Blighty, which was the slang soldiers used for Britain. And his letters from this period they're split right down the middle. On one hand, you have this pure, unfiltered joy, roll on Blighty, and he's making all these detailed plans for his homecoming. But on the other hand, you have the grim reality of waiting. Everyone is feeling fed up, he writes, as red tape and a shortage of ships just left them stranded.
And in the middle of all that frustration, what does he dream about? Not some grand adventure, not seeing more of the world. No, he dreams about being home in the cold English weather and just enjoying the simple, profound luxury of being warm behind a closed door. It's such a small,
powerful image of everything he missed.
And this, right here, might be the most profound change in him. After 5 years away, Tom himself knew he wasn't the same person who left. He puts it perfectly. He says, traveling gives you a roving disposition. He realizes that the very England he'd been longing for all this time might now feel too small for the man he'd become.
And really, that's the question Tom's incredible collection of letters leaves us with. His war wasn't just about survival. It was about the journey itself, the sights, the boredom, the waiting, and the deep, fundamental ways it changed him on the inside. What he brought home in the end was so much more complicated, so much richer than what he left with.